Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Stranger Rings podcast. We have a huge, monumental topic today. One of my favorite short-lived characters in wrestling history. I am Corey. Tom, how did you feel about this short but glorious run of Mordecai?
Short but glorious is a great way to describe what happened here. It's very interesting. I will go into it later, but there's a lot of good, a lot of bad, and a lot of missed opportunity in between.
So just to preface this, we had to cover this because this was like when I started watching his vignettes were going around, and I was all in as a 9-year-old. I was ready to go with Mordecai, and I think the presentation was good, and his matches were slow on purpose until you get to the last match he has during the run.
And he tears it up in that match. We won't go into too many spoilers there, but like that one was a surprisingly, like compared to the first two, like it just blew both out the water, and you think, okay, he's starting to get it, and then OVW happened.
Yeah, but before we jump into Mordecai and all the greatness that was that character, we have. It's a new year, 2021, and we are trying to, show our appreciation to everyone and trying to grow. And we are going to start doing some giveaways like once a month, maybe a little more, depending on how it's going. But we have our first giveaway we're going to announce at the end of this episode, but it is a WWE t-shirt, a WWE Legend t-shirt. And stick around for the end of the episode where we're going to, reveal how to enter. And I'm thinking we'll probably give it a week after this episode, and we'll pick the winner after that. But we'll reveal that later.
Yep, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome because I think people will like the stuff that we've got so far, and we are going to be happy to send it out and get to see everybody interacting with us and get some free stuff while they do it. So it's going to be fun.
It's a win-win situation for everybody involved.
Yes, it is. Not a win-win situation, though, was the debut of Mordecai and his subsequent run for the about month and a half that he's here.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to preface this by saying, like, the person behind the gimmick is Kevin Thorn. He wrestled as Seven in Ohio Valley Wrestling for a while, which is kind of like a Mordecai character, but is based off the 7 Deadly Sins. Then he went to Mordecai, and he's eventually known, probably most famously, as Kevin Thorn, which is the famous vampire named Kevin from the ECW on Sci-Fi.
Yes, his most exposure was as Kevin Thorn. I will always remember him as Mordecai, damn it, because he was a legend. But yeah, his run as Kevin Thorn, he did get in the New Breed, and he had Ariel with him, and there was a big presentation. And man, if it would have came like in late 2008 when Twilight started coming out, people would have been all over it.
Yes, he just missed that. He was ahead of his time.
He was. He might be the inspiration for Twilight itself.
I'll have to check the dates there for that, but I'd like to go by that.
Speaking of Twilight, in 8th grade our teacher made us read Twilight?
We didn't have to read it, but we had to go to the movies to watch it.
Oh yeah, we went to the movies, but for some reason, I believe in my class, they made us read like 8 chapters of it, and we like actually used it as reading material for the class and did like tests and shit on it, which was awful because I'm sorry anybody that likes Twilight, but it's just not my cup of tea. But I had to buy that damn book.
It's so poorly written.
Like I haven't like actually read it in a long time, but I feel like it's not as good as people make it out to be.
No, like I just remember reading part of it in like seventh grade or whatever, because I'm like, all right, I got to see what the hype is about this,
Yeah.
and reading it, and, like I'm thinking I could have wrote this. Like it's not like the quality of the writing, I guess, but
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Like the
Not
movies
a
became
fan.
such a big thing at that
Yeah,
time. Like every, teenage girl was like team whatever. The one dude's name was Edward. I forget the other one, but they were like
I
team
can't
something.
remember. Yeah, hashtag Team Vampire and Team Werewolf or whatever the hell they were.
Yeah, yeah. The dude was a wolf. I knew it was Taylor Lautner, but I don't remember what his name was in the movie. But I just know that Edward is now Batman for the next movie, so that should be a shit show.
There was recently something I saw on Twitter where he was in part of, I think it was like a critically acclaimed movie recently, but he was a Southern preacher and he had the worst Southern accent I've ever heard.
I think is he British in real life? I think he
I
is.
I thought he was American.
Maybe he is. I don't know. It blew
I
my
don't know.
mind though on the fact of British actors just dropping the accent when they play American roles because like every dude in The Walking Dead is from Britain except for Daryl. Blew my mind when Andrew Lincoln came out talking, the way he normally does.
I know, like I'm a big fan of the show House, and like Hugh Laurie is British, and he has like the most American voice that I've ever heard on the show. And then
Yeah,
he goes to his proper voice. I'm like, man, I wish I could do a British accent.
it's incredible. Like all these people on me and my girlfriend watched Riverdale, and like one of them is American. Like one girl's from Cleveland, everybody else, well, the Sprouse kid is from
Yeah.
America, but like the dude that plays Archie, like the main character, is from like New Zealand and has like this crazy accent, but you would never know just watching it.
Interesting. I see now. Do you think if Mordecai had an accent that he would have picked up even more than he already did?
I think that he should have picked up some kind of accent that we don't even know what it is, like some kind of dialect that we're not like a Matt Hardy, Broken Hardy, where he's like wonderful.
See, Matt Hardy picking up an accent saved his career, so
Eh,
he didn't have to do crazy shit anymore.
Did you see
Um,
that he's Big Money Matt?
yes, it made me so happy.
Jesus, well, I just can't believe that this man's just like a shapeshifter now. He just goes in between characters.
He's taking like 30% of private parties' earnings, and and then because they are with third party affiliates, like they wrestled in Impact last or 2 nights ago, he got like 50% of their cash because they wrestled for a third party affiliate.
I love that. I love everything about it. But yeah, Mordecai, I loved everything about the presentation of the vignettes, and his look was very unique. I thought his presentation was great. It was kind of like Seven, and I think we had talked about this in text. You brought that up, where Dustin Rhodes' character had such a great presentation, and then they just dropped the ball with it.
Yeah, like there was so much more I felt like they could have done with this character, and maybe just different ways of presenting him, different ways of having him wrestle in the ring, but also just having him like he's almost put like in this static world before they debut, like he's in the same place every time. If we
Mhm.
would have gotten some of the ideas that he'd come up with, that Kevin Furtick had came up with, holy shit, this character would have been way more memorable than it was, even because he was talking about doing like, because he came up with the gimmick on his own because Vince
Mhm.
McMahon apparently said to him in an interview, or like they were backstage and he'd been teaming with Tyson Tomko, on like dark matches and Sunday Night Heat and
Mhm.
stuff. And he said, I don't need tag teams. I need a single star. What can you do that other people can't? And apparently his father was like a Catholic school teacher. He's raised Catholic, and he had like a fire and brimstone pastor or preacher that he went to when he was a kid.
Mhm.
And he always felt like that was fascinating. So he's like, why don't we get a character who hates sinners and in turn becomes one because he's sinning to like destroy these sinners. And the one idea he had for a vignette, which blew my mind, was he would be like the priest in a confession, and while the sinner is like culminating into saying like all their sins or whatever, he
Mhm.
punches through the confession window and like starts choking the sinner out. And I'm
Oh
like,
my God, that would
holy
have been
shit.
so amazing.
Yeah, that would have been one of the most memorable. They would have got probably into a lot of trouble with the religious sect, like, section of the audience,
Mhm.
but they were going to either way with this character. So, but when he came up with that idea, he said Vince McMahon's eyes bugged out of his head. He's like, I love it.
Oh, that's like it's perfect, honestly. I mean, and if people were going to get mad about that segment, just wait until 2 years later when Vince McMahon started washing his face at church.
Yeah, that's the thing. Mordecai walked so Vince McMahon's feud with God could run.
Yeah, at least Mordecai didn't go over on God like Vince McMahon did.
Oh gosh. So Mordecai essentially he debuted it was a little bit different because apparently one of the things I saw was they wanted to do it in an actual church, and then the archdiocese was like, yeah, we're not going to let you do this.
Mhm.
Like, we're not going to let you punch through a confession window. And I'm like, I don't know if maybe that was just an explanation that Kevin Fertig got, or if that was the truth, but wow.
Yeah, I mean, but still, you would think that WWE could have like made some makeshift little thing,
Right.
how they did Piper's Pit and everything, and had him, even if they didn't have him punch through um, the confession thing, but they did all those segments with the altar and the candles. Like he could have had somebody talking to him at the altar and like grabbed him from over the altar or something.
Right. Yeah, it didn't have to be like confession because he's already like you're inferring the fact like almost throughout the entire thing he's inferring the fact like that it's like he's religious, but he's more sinister than that. It's not
Hmm.
something pure.
Yeah, yeah, he's almost like like he follows the commandments and hates the sinners, but he's okay with doing whatever has to happen to make them pay, which therefore makes him just as bad or worse than everybody else.
Right. Right. And that's just a cool dichotomy of the character. And I really wish that they would have added the seven deadly sin thing in here because I
Hmm.
think this would have been the perfect opportunity, even if you're just going to call him Mordecai and have him do this whole gimmick, but then add the seven deadly sins where he could start going after people because of these certain sins.
That's
Like,
his first seven feuds could have just been for each sin.
yeah, like Big Show could have been gluttony, or like Eddie Guerrero could, or and then like he could have went after I don't know. Well, I was gonna say Val Venus, but I don't want him involved in this at all. um, but like he goes after one of the divas for lust and like for just greed. He goes after like somebody that did like maybe Eddie Guerrero. That
Ric
could be
Flair.
the culmination, or Ric Flair, but like they could have come up with these ideas for it. Because it seems kind of haphazard who he wants to feud with. Because ultimately, they said the match they wanted was WrestleMania 21, Undertaker versus Mordecai.
Oh man, I wish that would have happened now. I mean, we got a phenomenal match in feud with Randy Orton, but
Right.
uh, Mordecai's like he's the opposite of the Undertaker pretty much, so it works out perfectly. But Mordecai, and I mean, it seemed like there was big plans. Like obviously, the original plan was the Undertaker, but he also had that one random promo directed at Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah, that really shocked me. I was like, it makes sense the way that they were describing it. I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, well, having him go after the guy that lies, cheats, and steals and is proud of it is perfect for a religious
Hmm.
character. But especially like if he would have cheated to get a win over Eddie.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been great. But so let's actually get into the videos here. The first Mordecai appearance is April 15th on SmackDown, which and I went into because I love this Mordecai idea. I thought every Velocity was on the network, but it's only like seven of
I
them.
know. I checked too.
Because I was
I
like, was
was
he
like,
working Velocity? Like, because he shows up like on one SmackDown, and he's off for like three. So I
right.
was like, oh, he must have been on Velocity, but we'll never know.
Very tough scene indeed for poor Mordecai's character. That was another thing that I had issue with, is if you have a character like this, you got to put him on every single week.
Yeah, just have him beat up, the cruiserweights or Akio or, somebody that they haven't been using, like Funaki.
Right. Or do a minute long vignette like they had been doing.
Have him talk about, like, if the seven deadly sins would have, been part of his character, he could talk about one sin a week or,
Right.
whatever. But it's missed opportunities all over here. But April 15th, SmackDown is where we see the first video of Mordecai, and he's at an altar with a bunch of candles, and it looks really creepy. And his first line is, "The heavens have been ripped open."
Yes, and a Pale Rider thundered out, which gives him the nickname the Pale Rider, which is a fucking awesome nickname.
I know, I was a big fan of that.
What was that?
I said I was a big fan of the Pale Rider name.
Yeah.
But,
Oh my God. Yeah. It was absolutely a fucking fantastic name. And with biblical overtones as well. And we'll describe his look in a second, but
yeah,
it's perfect for his look.
yeah, and then he says that he is the right hand of the Father, and he ends most of these videos with the quote, "Hear me, fear me."
Which reminds me of a backyard wrestling promo that we had for one of our characters played by our friend Jimmy.
Oh my God, that would have been great. He should just took it up. But yeah, let's talk about Mordecai's look here because it's unique to say the least.
Yeah, oh my gosh, this was just I guess one of the things that really, not to get too far ahead, but something about this character that really confused me a bit was where it was all very, I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but very oblique, like it wasn't, I don't know if that was the right word I used. But it's like hard, like he's using such high language, like you think he would want to dumb it down a little bit, like the "hear me, fear me."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
To get a little bit more direct with it, where like he talks about the sinners and stuff later in it, but I think really just the first one, it was to build the character, which isn't bad.
Yeah, he was dropping the knowledge first. He had to show that he went to Sunday school.
Like I think that a character that quotes Bible verses and shit could really work out, especially a creepy character like this. But it's tough. Because I go back and forth when it comes to certain things being in pro wrestling, like namely politics and religion. Politics definitely, I think, should stay out of wrestling always. But given with what WWE, their intertwined thing with politics and in their company, but especially religion is such a touchy subject that it's tough to have a character like this where he straight up says, "I'm the right hand of the Father, and I'll take care of the wicked, evildoers, and the profane," where he's clearly from this religious background.
Yeah, I mean, I can see a lot of people having issues with it. I thought where he was like, "I am the right hand of the Father," I was like, okay, like this man's gonna like fuck somebody up if they do something wrong. Like it was a great like build up, I think, but a lot of people, yeah, I could see have some issues with it, especially if they're somebody that is very religious.
Right, and they like pro wrestling, and then they don't want to see this because they think their religion is being given a bad name. Personally, I don't think it is. I think that this is totally different, and I think it's actually is a really good commentary on people that are overly religious, like that use it to persecute other people. I think that's an excellent commentary, but it is a touchy subject where you wonder, what its place and what it can be used for. And I think that they had something here with it. But that first week, it kind of got met with like the time of reckoning is upon us, is what Mordecai said.
Yeah.
After Hear Me, Fear Me. And Michael Cole's response made me laugh, where he just said, "What on earth was that?" After they aired the after they
And
aired the
Taz is like,
video.
I don't know.
Oh man, it's just which is I love the shock that's being sold by the announcers.
Yeah, and it's we got to talk about what he's wearing too. He has this man is donned in all white. We got a white pants, white robe, with the little cross symbol that is something that he will carry to the ring, and he also has blonde slash whitish hair, eyebrows, and beard.
Yes, I mean, he's serving looks left and right.
Yes,
Um,
and he said in an interview I listened to about which we'll talk about later is one of the reasons why he wasn't there long is that he was in a altercation in a bar, and he's like, I just don't know why somebody wanted to come at the guy with his, his whole hair and eyebrows and beard dyed white.
yeah, it's like you see this, and I mean, to mention too that Mordecai is a big guy, even though he doesn't always look like it compared to the guys that he was wrestling, because he's like 6'3", like 270 still. Like,
Hmm.
where if you pair him with smaller guys like Rey Mysterio or Scotty 2 Hotty, like you can tell, oh, this is a big dude.
Yeah, but he's also not big enough where he needs to work at that very methodical, slow pace, which is
Right.
what he does purposefully. I mean, I think he pretty much said like I needed to work. I felt like I needed to work like this stalking kind of style, like the Undertaker did early on, when really he probably should have just wrestled the way he did against Mysterio at the end of his run.
Right. And then they would have seen, hey, this is a big man with some athleticism here. Like we got something with him. He's got charisma, he could cut a promo. He's got a wild look, like very memorable. But
Hmm.
it's just really tough. When we get to the matches later, one of the words Michael Cole uses to describe them is methodical, and I think that's the issue there.
Hmm.
Is and Bruce Pritchard pointed out too. He said he wanted to work too much like the Undertaker. You know, he wanted that big, slow style, which worked for the Undertaker back in the day. But even he had to quicken the pace.
And the Undertaker, you could kind of understand because he's damn near 7 foot tall, 320 pounds, probably when he first came in. But while Kevin Thorn in normal uh, life is a big guy at 6'3", 270, he's not wrestling big where he needs to work that style.
Exactly, exactly, and especially like when he's paired in against Hardcore Holly, who is a little like 30 pounds lighter than him, but still 30 pounds is not huge in wrestling,
Mhm.
and like height wise, they're pretty close to the same size.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, just because I'm a football nerd, he's like he's an NFL tight end size, like a
Right,
little undersized for a tight end because they're
right.
usually like 6'6", 6'5". So he's like, I mean, he's a good sized dude, but like he's he's not the biggest human being to have to work that style.
Yeah, so he can move like a tight end, not like a defensive lineman.
Exactly. He was working like a nose tackle. He should have worked like a pass rusher.
Yeah. Man, I the people that aren't fans of American football here are gonna yeah,
I'm just
we
throwing my coach
apologize.
out on, just
But
coaching it up.
they're really for the longest yard, man, it's gonna be an education.
Yeah, exactly. So after this promo that was on April 15th on SmackDown, the next week on April 22nd, we have another, spoken word with Mordecai in his altar little like cult area. I don't even know. He has like a shrine,
Yeah.
but
But with all those candles and stuff, but we get a good like shot at the beginning of a part of his face. You don't see the whole
mhm.
thing at once, and it's one bleached eyebrow, which I thought was a really cool, spooky looking thing.
Yeah, we don't really see his face in that first promo on the 15th, but this one you get to see a little bit, and then by the third promo he has of this, um, I believe you can actually fully see like who he is and everything. But in this one, he drops he has the Iron Cross too in this one.
Yes, he does. The which it reminds me of your tattoo. The
Oh
way
yeah, it
that it
kind of does.
looks.
Yeah. It has the only thing that's like really different is those like moon shaped things on the sides.
Right, to make it look like it's not just a normal crucifix, so they'll get in trouble for it.
Hmm. Yeah, he has like the different looking cross, but he also has a good line, I thought at least, where he says, "The veil of evil has been cloaked over righteousness," or something along those lines.
Very spooky. I liked it. I was a fan. I wasn't as big of a fan of. Well, I guess it was just ridiculous, the wording, like words that people would never use, which
Hmm.
might be perfect for this religious character, where he said he mentions the whoremongers and adulterers that have walked amongst the community for far too long.
Yeah, he says a bunch of, biblical kind of stuff where, I mean, like, there's some good stuff. He definitely is on a different level with the words that he's using at some points, but I mean, he also talks about looking sinners right in the eye, which was good too.
Yes, and they show the shot of his eyes, and I was wishing that they would have had white contacts that he wore.
Oh my God, yeah, that would have been great if he had the
That
cane contacts.
yes, like just with both of them, like Rey Mysterio, I think wore those for a little while, and
Hmm.
our former backyard wrestling friend Brandon, didn't he have that for a second?
Oh, I don't know if he did.
I could have swore that he
He,
did, or he's
I
talked
think
about
that
it.
that's something he would do. I feel like so. I mean, I'm good with saying he did.
But um we when getting back to this, like he says like are you that sinner, when he talks about looking sinners in the eyes, and then it's the hear me fear me again. And I think this one did a better job of connecting him with the audience.
Yeah, but and it also gives you like the what's it called, cliffhanger, because on the first one he said like what did he say at the end of the first one? I
The
can't even
time of
remember.
reckoning is upon
Time
us.
time of reckoning is upon us. Well, this one ends with the day of judgment draws near, and of course, Judgment Day is the next pay-per-view. So
That was that was great for me. I was like, look at the wordplay. You love to see it.
yeah,
But
but
and
but
then
you got to
Taz
remember to
was
hear him and fear him.
true. You have to. So he's like a modern day poet, is Mordecai. Um, he then Taz follows it up by saying, "What the hell was that?"
Yeah, that's about what everybody in the audience is probably thinking too.
Yeah, it's tough for some of these characters to be in just vignettes, and
Hmm.
I think this one, like I said, it's kind of static because it just continues to be him behind the altar preaching, and he doesn't interact with anybody. And it would have been awesome, like if he's talking to this like church full of people, and they all like are really like scared of him and stuff, like
Hmm.
just seeing other people be like, okay, well, there's something not right with this dude, and then he could either react violently towards them or just be sinister. But I think that would
Hmm.
have helped put this over the edge.
Yeah, that would have been great if they had like a small like congregation in front of him during it. I think that would have added a lot to it.
Right. And then he could have even adopted like followers if he wanted to.
That's what
Like
I was just thinking. Then you could make a faction out of it.
right. Like what was Jimmy Wang Yang doing at that point? He was just him and Sakota were jobbing. Like
Yeah, he was
they
still a
already moved.
Keo.
Yeah, so he was a Keo. Like they could have just been like, come with me. And then all of a sudden the next week he's dressed in all white too.
He could have started naming them after the disciples.
Oh my god. See, listen, we're booking here.
Shout
Love
out to
it.
Kevin Furtig for that. But
Yes.
the worst part about this is I think he's building a little momentum here, but then we don't see him again from April 22nd to May 13th.
And there was a lot of important things going on SmackDown at that point, like Booker T talking to voodoo priests and or
Oh
priestess, and then him buying a bag of dirt to throw at the Undertaker,
my God.
which we will cover eventually.
I was watching this and I sent you the screenshots. It was like Booker T visits voodoo priest, and it was like Booker T explores graveyard, and I was like, what is going on?
It was great. This
Hmm.
this era of SmackDown was wild because I started watching like the '04 stuff, and I sent it to you guys you and Chase Oliver, where there was a video of Paul Heyman saying that Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, instead of them getting drafted to another show, he wants them to be deported. They're both Americans. Like,
Yeah, that was incredible.
wild stuff going on at this point in WWE.
Yeah, it's a lot of wild things happening there, especially because they're both Americans.
Yes, it just and then it's not the first immigration storyline of the year,
No.
but it's a crazy thing. Like they got that going on. They got Booker T and his voodoo stuff. They got this mad priest that's on here. Like I think Rene Dupree gets a singles push. Like what the fuck's going on here on SmackDown?
Yeah, that does happen. Kenzo Suzuki's also running vignettes.
Oh Lord! Did you hear about like what might have happened with that character if somebody didn't stop them?
I think I've heard this, but I can't remember.
He was supposed to be named Hirohito after the Japanese emperor,
Yeah.
and apparently he was supposed to be angry about the nuclear bombs that were dropped on Japan. So, because that's very timely reference in 2004. Jesus Christ, it's not. Yeah, so thankfully that didn't happen.
I forgot. I did hear that before, but that would have been awful, to say the least. But on May 13th, we have another, spoken word session with Mordecai, where he calls society a cancer, and he said that he is going to emerge from a black hole and going to turn the sins against the sinners.
It was just a very, very bold. I loved. He said, "Sin eats away at the soul of society," and I'm like, that alliteration, man.
Yeah,
they would have loved that in my creative writing classes. People would have been like, "Great line."
That alliteration, though.
It's solid. But Mordecai finally reveals his face from far away, where it's like this, and he's got like this flowing white mane of hair as well. That, like I said, his look is just completely different to anybody else's.
I wish they kind of. Now that I'm thinking about this, I wish they would have had him on like a mountaintop, like Moses, with like rain and shit coming down, and like his hair flying in the wind, where he looks like this, like he can control the fucking weather or something.
That would have been incredible. Like they should have just started doing, if they wanted to go Bible like stuff with him, they should have just started doing like biblical things like that. Holy shit, dude! Like there's so much potential for this character.
They've controlled indoor weather patterns. they've made people be lit on fire now. We're actually like burning people to death in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
We throw fireballs.
Yep.
What else do we do? Alexa Bliss used the Force and made the rocking chair move, or the rocking horse. So I mean, what? Why not make Mordecai part the sea?
Man, I see. Like I said, you got to go all in if you're going to do this sort of thing.
Or they could have did God, this sounds bad because I went through a lot of Sunday school, but I don't think I paid attention good enough. Jesus healed the guy's ear after it had been cut. Correct, I think.
I believe so.
He could have had somebody come back after they were bleeding in a match and do some camera cut, have him hold his hand on their head, and then stops bleeding.
See, that would have been, if they wouldn't have got in so much trouble for doing that, like that would have been incredible.
I mean, The Undertaker's been buried alive and came back to life, and he ascended to heaven. I mean, he put a girl on a cross and tried to marry her against her will.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, pro wrestling is essentially, I think I've heard it described as like theater in its most base form. Like it clearly, like shit that isn't supposed to happen happens frequently in pro wrestling. Like you might as well just embrace it.
Yeah, honestly, we had Crazy. Well, this is after 10 years after that, but Crazy Steve got thrown from a volcano to be pinned.
That's very true. That happened. Like, and we were just like, okay, we'll accept it and move on. Like,
yeah, we just acted like that was normal.
Abyss killed a man by crushing his head with a rock in that same match,
and nobody ever stopped him. No authorities.
No. So, like, you might as well have him start performing miracles, like especially like if he's getting more powerful, like as the storyline grows, like he starts doing more shit, and like the storyline is like he's growing more powerful to face the Undertaker, and then you could do some smoke and
Oh
mirrors
my
stuff with
God, that'd be
that.
so great.
Yeah, like you could have done just, especially if cinematic matches were around back then. Oh my
Oh yeah,
goodness.
yeah, for sure. What was the have you ever seen the meme of the person walking into Walmart or the Walmart rack and it says like water on the display and it's wine and somebody was like Jesus must have been here.
I'd never seen that.
Oh my God, that could have been Mordecai. He could have like went like or if you took it in a comedy way, he could be like I'm going to turn this water into wine and he just can't do it. He's like
Yeah, he's
fuck.
just like, S- oh, see, it's a world of possibilities with this character.
If they had the
But
expanded universes at this point, like if this came around during the broken universe, oh, the things that could have happened.
yeah, man, like I want another company to hire. Like, if Impact hired him right now and brought him in, they could do so much with like their weird universes that they do all the
he
time.
he would have been like fucking Gandalf the White.
Oh Lord. Back to finish the May
Yeah,
13th SmackDown. He's at the altar and he wields his cross like a weapon, and he threatens to turn each sin against the sinner, and then says, "Hear me, fear me, my day has come." And
I
then
like
it cuts to like actual text that says, "Mordecai, this Sunday, Judgment Day."
I like it. Good place to debut him. You build up to this. I think there should have been maybe one more vignette in between the 22nd and May 13th. But not a bad build for a debut.
No, no. It makes for a very interesting character that personally, like, I would want to see more of if I was watching it this time.
Yeah, for sure. And just a side note, I was out to eat 2 days ago, and the bartender lady said that she was her baby's due on May 19th, and I just looked at her and I was like, oh no, like I knew I couldn't say it because no one would know that reference, but I was like, damn, that baby can have a long life as a big red machine.
Make a cheap plug for our May 19th episode that we did a while back last year. Quality content right there.
Every time I hear May 19th, I know it's the first thing that comes to my head. So, '06 WWE did a good job there.
Yes, it's one that I'll never forget. I remember explaining that to my mom one time, being like, "Yes, May 19th is a very famous day in the wrestling community."
Kane Day.
Yes, which we released it on Kane Day, I believe.
We did. Yeah, we put it out right on May 19th. Had to.
So, man, it feels like forever ago, and it kind of was.
Mm-hmm. It was. But now, also forever ago, was Judgment Day on May 16th, 2004, when Mordecai had his first test on the SmackDown roster, and they gave him a test in Scotty Too Hottie.
Scotty Too Hottie has the opposite of a fashion watch here. He's wearing a Judgment Day T-shirt to the ring because he doesn't even have a T-shirt for his own character.
Oh, he should have had a worm T-shirt.
Exactly. Like it should have been self-made if it wasn't an actual T-shirt. Like just get a bootleg one and throw it on, or an old one from the 2000s when you were still in Too Cool. But
Yeah.
but yeah, he's wearing that, and he's billed from Maine of all places. Which, other than Stephen King, I haven't heard anyone ever coming from Maine.
No, I can't. I don't think I know anybody from Maine. I don't even know many people that have visited Maine.
No, I've heard it's very nice though.
I have heard that too, but I don't know. I feel like you got to be cold up there.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be nice in like the summertime.
If you are from Maine, send us a tweet at Stranger Rings 1. Tell us all about it.
We need to know. And we need to know if you know Scotty Too Hottie as well, which, by the way, is one of the most ridiculous names in the history of professional wrestling.
Yeah, when he was still Scott Taylor, he was just Scotty Hottie. He wasn't too hottie yet. He didn't evolve.
That's
Um,
incredible.
but I love Scotty Too Hottie. He's one of the most fun characters, just like as a perfect like lower mid card guy.
Yeah, and he was a good guy to pair Mordecai with. But the match itself left a lot to be desired, in my opinion, and in the crowd's opinion as well. And I think it's more booking than the actual talent involved here.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously don't get a lot of time, because you got to put over that Mordecai's real good. It doesn't take him too long to pin Scotty, but you also only get like 5 or 6 minutes out of them, if that. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
the
we got to talk
presentation
about.
was good.
Yes, we got to talk about the entrance music.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know how to describe it.
It's like
Funeral music.
yeah, it's like this ominous music with like a carnival sound in it at one point. Like it's one of the best. This is a very hot take. One of the best entrance musics that I've ever heard produced by Jim Johnston.
Really?
I think so. Like this is a fantastic song.
Jim Johnson, he's back now, isn't he?
I didn't hear anything about
Because the
that.
CFOs are gone.
Yeah, but I think they just outsource it to another band, just like CFOs.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah, I wish Jim Johnston was back because he made some bangers back in the day.
I just love how in the 2000s they just started like remixing everyone's songs. Like Triple H had the game was like done by Drowning Pool for a second,
Yeah, I forgot about that.
and then like didn't Chris Jericho had like Seven Dust or somebody do one?
Yeah,
Uh,
and he had a song by Saliva at one point too for like 2 weeks.
And then I didn't realize the Batista song, I Walk Alone was like a WWE song, and then Saliva just like made it their own for him.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like because you hear him even at WrestleMania like 21, he was still coming out to the WWE version.
Yeah, and like Undertaker just got what's it called? Limp Bizkit when they were actually super popular.
Yeah, and then I think he had Kid Rock for a second too.
Did he come out to American Badass?
I thought he did. I
Oh,
might be
maybe he did.
wrong, but he did come out to Limp Bizkit for a while too. So I don't
Wow.
know, but like we've had some famous people do entrance me, and the most important one, of course, was X Factor. X Pac stable came out to a song by Uncle Cracker.
Oh God. I thought you were gonna say Motorhead when they did the game and forgot the words.
That was fantastic too.
Lemmy was
He's
just like, "Oh, okay, I want to play."
and then he just repeated it 6 times.
There was
uh,
one. I don't know if it was. When did he play it? 18? Did they play too? I think. Because they did it twice at Mania. 21 obviously was the one where, I think 21 was where they didn't know the fucking words,
I
but
think so.
the one that he did in like it was either 18 or 19 or whenever, but he knew most of the words, but he would also just make up words in the middle of it during it. He was just like, "I'm a smoking gun." Oh yeah, like he'd just be like you wouldn't know what the fuck he was saying, but it was still on beat, so it worked out.
It was just like freeform jazz, but Lemmy styled. But
uh,
so
but Scotty too
Mordecai,
hotty, this poor bastard.
yeah, Mordecai has fire and pyro set off by his cross when he slams the bottom of his cross against the ground.
I wish the cross would have had pyro come out the top of it.
Oh, see, they just this character, like, just let us book this, go back and book this character.
I would start an EWR just to Jesus push him.
Yep. Like, listen, he's getting the world belt, and he's going over the Taker at Mania. Like,
um,
so
let's see what else yeah, so the presentation great with the fire and everything, and he has like the little cross holder too.
yes, just to it's a very safe thing, so it doesn't get lost.
Yes, somebody had a Mordecai sign in the crowd here too, by the way.
A Mordecai equals ratings sign.
Was it? That's great. He does
Yeah,
equal
there was
ratings
one.
for me.
I love it. Oh Lord. Scotty Too Hottie looks freaked out by Mordecai like as soon as Mordecai enters the ring.
Yeah, and when Mordecai enters the ring too, he makes sure to pray in the corner, getting
It,
ready.
yeah, it gets heat too, which like some of the like the prayer stuff that he did was great because it did get heat.
Yeah, now I keep thinking of all these things he could have done. Like when he put him for the Razor's Edge, when he had him in like the first powerbomb position with the head between the legs, he could have did the sign of the cross and then put him up.
Oh, that would have been great.
He was just
See,
like, it was like a I absolve you of your sins kind of thing, and then like hits him with it.
see, character moments, man.
I'm just
What could
gonna
have been?
train my whole life to be Mordecai. I'm just gonna
Just
become a
because.
wrestler and be Mordecai.
um, Mordecai, he ends up getting immediately, like, gets thrown into the post, but he comes back and he does what amounts to be a cobra clutch around the ring post, which was very unique.
It was. He uses the post well in a lot of matches. Um,
Yes.
but he also does he does the choke in the corner, um, around the pole, and then he also does uh, shoulders into the corner, and he does a face lock through the ropes, like almost like a tarantula, but he just has him by his face.
Yeah, like these were good, but like submission holds, but this wasn't like quick. Like it would be like you lock him in for this, then you wait 30 seconds, and then you lock him in the next one. And so the chin lock immediately started getting boring chance, and I
Hmm.
was like, oh no.
Yeah, and I think like right after that they start to go home because Scotty 2 Hotty hits a beautiful super kick at one point, just picture perfect.
Yes, very Shawn Michaels esque, which I never thought I would hear about Scotty Too Hottie.
This is the first Scotty 2 Hotty match I've seen in a very long time, so I was happy about it. But
Yes.
he did go for the worm here, so that was nice.
Yeah, but he gets pulled into the second rope to reverse it, like throat first into it, which I thought was a um, cool reversal there. And then Mordecai followed it up with a short arm clothesline, and then a creepy look to the heavens above, which
Yeah, it was
good
weird.
character moment. Yes.
Yeah, and I gotta say, just as this counter to the worm was so simple, like every single person should have watched this and been like, if he goes for the worm and does the arm swing before it, just grab him and throw him into the ropes because everything Mordecai counters, and we'll see this later in the match with Mysterio too. All his counters are very logical.
Yeah, like he knows how to work, and this is the thing that blows my mind is he is good at, like, he is not a bad professional wrestler. It's just the way he's working, it's just very slow, and that's an easy fix. Like all you have to do is tell him, hey, work quicker.
Yeah, and then he was starting to hit his stride and then got cut out from underneath with the bar fight and the potential lawsuit, I think it was. But um, we'll talk about that near the end. But Mordecai is bleeding from the mouth. Did you see that?
Yes, I did. I'm
Scotty
guessing.
with that stiff kick
Yeah, I was gonna say it had to have been the super kick because that was like that and the bulldog were the only two moves Scotty hit.
made this man bite his tongue probably.
And
But
then yeah, then that followed up with the very aptly named crucifix power bomb, getting the
yes.
victory for Mordecai. He's officially 1-0, and he gives a very creepy stare into the hard cam.
Hmm. Did you see the guy in the crowd when he picked him up for the Razor's Edge? He started doing the Scott Hall taunt.
No, I missed that.
Like the dude in the front row did like the jumping thing and then the arms out. And I was like, yes.
Amazing. He's a worker.
But yeah, I mean, somewhat of a strong debut here. He won convincingly. So it did the job, without giving him too much time.
Right. Just the fact, though, that it got the boring chance, I'm sure
Hmm.
probably hurt him early, but it's like maybe should have been something they saved for TV if they were going to do it like that. But I get wanting to debut him on pay per view because he is like this character you have such big plans for. He's got a lot there. You want to put him on the biggest stage possible.
Hmm. For sure. And then May 27th is where we start getting some direction for Mordecai on SmackDown, where we have another vignette, and he is in his altar with his candles, and he says that he is choosing a victim, and he is hearing the voice like Gideon's horn.
That was a great line. I love that.
and he has like a big like tome like Bible like one of them like what Joe Biden took the inauguration on.
The book from Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
oh
did that guy
god.
find the original Bible though? Like to take this on?
Just gigantic book. But um yeah, he's got this ridiculously huge
He's got
Bible with
fucking
him.
War and Peace.
And he's got, it's just ridiculous. And Mordecai has some notable things where he says, I will make them pay for their sins with blood, and I will purge their flesh with pain.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's still going. You know, his IQ's like at a 120, where the average WWE fan at this time was at like 100 right now. Like he was dropping some words.
Yep, Galaxy Brain, Mordecai. But he then declares that he's already chosen his first sinner. And I wrote who, like with multiple O's, because I was very curious.
Yeah, I was trying to see if he was going to drop the name here, but he doesn't, and he says that the one man crusade is just beginning.
Yes, and which is a great nickname for him as well, like what he's going on, because then they show the text that says "One Man Crusade" on it.
Yes, and so he's narrowing in on a victim here, and that brings us to June 3rd SmackDown, where Mordecai actually makes his way to the ring. It's not a pre-tape, which is pretty nice, and we again hear Cole call him the Pale Rider as he makes his way down.
He doesn't have his fancy hoodie this time though. He has instead, like in the robe and everything, he's just got like this white sheer shirt with a cross symbol on it, and but he does have the priest collar, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah, this was casual Mordecai.
He's like, all right, I got to compete. I can't be wearing this. I can't worry about this ornate hoodie getting like dirty. So
Yeah, he did. He probably did have to work really hard to keep everything clean since it was all white.
yeah, he was like, that had to have been extremely difficult, and a lot of bleach probably was used. But he Michael Cole like talk is waxing philosophical here by saying like Mordecai is, you know, he prays to God, but what God may that be?
And then, like, okay, I mean, I guess, but he's like, and Mordecai claims to sit at the right hand of the Father. Like, he's just really dropping the all the religious undertones for this character.
Yeah, and I just love Michael Cole like explaining it, telling the story for everybody to understand. Like I could just imagine Jim Ross doing this would be even better, where he's like in a southern accent, be like, "What the hell? Like, who
Oh
is
four
this man?"
oh four Michael Cole had a rough year. This was also the Heidenreich year.
Yeah, he's struggling, man. It's
And the year
absolute struggle
before
here.
this, '03 was when he was just the victim of all of Cena's raps.
Yeah, where he would just have to end it with saying John Cena, everyone. Like he didn't just get mocked for God knows what.
Yeah, but let me see. After Cole claims that Mordecai sits at the right hand of the Father, we see Mordecai say something to Tony Chimmel, the GOAT ring announcer, besides for the Fink.
Tony Chim was an elite ring announcer, and he never got the respect he deserved.
I loved him. He was the best.
Yes, so good. Rated R superstar.
Yeah, that was great. You had him and Teddy Long on the show at the same time.
Wow, the talent there is just astounding.
If we could have had Mean Gene on interviews, there would have been too much power on the
Yes.
WWE, side of things. But
We had Josh Matthews instead.
oh yeah, yeah. Who looked like a Michael Cole cosplay at the early part of his career.
Before he started getting like his tattoos and his short haircut and everything. Like,
Yeah, they both
but
had like the frosted tips. They were ready to go.
they were trying. But
Um,
that go ahead.
Chimmel here though, he hears Mordecai say this to him. He hears him and fears him, and he tells everybody to please bow their heads for Mordecai to pray for their sins. Sins, as I can't speak.
I just laugh so hard because I'm like, what a heel. He's like, so Mordecai can pray for all of your sins. And
And then
the
you see
crowd just
like two people in the
boo.
crowd that like actually bowed their heads. He was like, "Yeah, I probably need this. Like, I got
He's
a
like,
little
I'm
too
having a rough,
drunk last week." Like,
yeah, I'm having a rough time lately.
like
But,
the two
oh,
people that were just like, "You're right. We should do this."
yeah, but the crowd, they just hated it. And I was like, this is, what a heel. What a heel.
Yes, he talks about um the country. He says the country is disgusting. The kids are spoiled. The women are as bad as the harlots on the streets. And then he said, the men are included here, and the father forgives them, but he won't.
Just I thought this was excellent. Like this was probably my favorite segment, other than the fact that Hardcore Holly and him brawled for no reason. Um, this was my favorite segment of the whole thing because he was actually interacting with the crowd. They weren't giving him a what chant or anything. Like they were just booing him.
And the harlot thing was like that was some stiff stuff. I mean, some people probably didn't know what that meant, but it was a stiff shot to the crowd.
It was, man. It's a very nice 18th century word, I guess. Like
Yeah,
he was going far back for those insults. But
yeah.
yeah, so then he says, they will hear me and fear me, and I damn them all to hell.
Yes, and this is where he gets the cane pyro.
Yes, it erupts from all four corners. And oh man, that was just great. And then the commentary was my favorite. Taz said, "Alrighty then," and Michael Cole, to spell it out for everybody, says, "Mordecai has damned this audience to hell."
I love when the pyro hit too because you got Taz and he was like, "Oh!" Like he was not expecting it.
You had to sell it, man. Taz,
Yeah.
what a treasure Taz is. And he
Eh,
didn't have any fashion watches that were notable in this episode, which made me sad.
Yeah, that was sad. He's just looking fresh. Not anything outlandish though, but this was a great
No,
segment.
it was. I my favorite one of all of this. Of everything that we watched of Mordecai. My only issue was like he built up where he had chose his first sinner, but then didn't say anything about his first sinner in this. But a minor
Mhm.
nitpick because this was really good.
Yes. And then on the June 17th SmackDown, we see Mordecai again, where he talks about how there is a locker room full of sinners and they are unworthy of his mercy. And I believe, is this the night where he attacks, um, what's it called? Hardcore Holly?
No.
Damn it. Damn it.
We're
um,
not there yet.
oh, I don't know. I must have missed it somewhere.
That's 24th. I could run you through that one though once
Oh,
we
I
get
went
there.
back and watched it and then I didn't write it down. Son of a bitch.
It's
But
okay. I could walk us through later,
it's
but
all good. I watched it though. It was great.
yeah.
And then he does talk about his victim here though.
Yes, he finally mentions the worst sinner of them all, referring to Eddie Guerrero, the WWE champion, which is a hot start to your WWE career, going from Scotty 2 Hotty to the world champion.
He was like, I beat Scotty too hotty. There's nowhere else to go but Freddie Guerrero.
Why don't I just get the belt and beat everybody?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what Hardcore Holly was probably fighting him about. He's like, he's stealing my idea.
Oh God.
But this was great because he doesn't specifically say Eddie Guerrero ever. He says, worst of all was the one who lies, cheats, and steals.
Yeah, that was like it was perfect because I mean we all knew who he was talking about, but he says he takes the values we adore and throws them in the gutter from which he came.
Wow. Fighting words right there.
Yeah, it's very stiff. In that this man who lies, cheats, and steals will learn to hear me and fear me.
And if I was not writing this in paper, if I was writing on my phone, I put Mordecai versus Guerrero with the question mark, the exclamation point, and then it would have got the gasping emoji
Love
because I
that.
was ready.
This is the only interaction that we ever see of Mordecai and Eddie Guerrero. Like this is the closest we got to it.
Sadly, yep, we didn't get to see
Disappointing.
the match of the century.
It would have been a good match too, like with the way he works with Ray.
Hmm.
Like, but we also got it after that segment ended. We got Roman Reigns' big brother Luther made his in-ring debut.
Luther Reigns. This is around the time where Kurt Angle had the fake broken leg,
Yes, because he got choke slammed off a balcony onto concrete by Big Show.
and he had like blood pooling around his head, but he only hurt his leg.
Yeah, like they wrote him off for dead, and then he's back the next week in a wheelchair.
We should probably go over his run as GM at some point too. That would be a fun watch.
Oh Lord, I'm about to get to that point in my WWE 2004 rewatch, so I'm ready for it.
It won't ever be as good as Kevin Nash just standing up with the fake cast though.
Oh Lord, one of my favorite gifts of all time.
Oh, that was incredible. I'm glad whoever thought of that should have got $1 million on the spot.
Yes, it
Ted
just
Turner
makes
should have
all
just
the
wrote
money.
the fucking thing. Have you seen the Blue Mountain State movie?
No, I haven't.
Damn it. Okay, but this counts in the wrestling talk right here. Quick Blue Mountain State reference. If you haven't watched it, it's hilarious. But in the movie, Thad went to the NFL, and he said he's a billionaire now, is what he claims. But he has this cousin who I believe he calls Dick Dog. I want to say is his name. I don't know why. And anytime he makes Thad laugh, Thad will be like, "Write yourself a check," and Dick Dog will be like, "Fuck yeah." And just like fucking write a check, and that's what should have happened from Ted Turner when whoever came up with the stand up out of the cast.
Yeah, just cash bonuses to everybody. Like big Ted just opening the wallet up. But we get something great here on the June 24th SmackDown, where the segment is titled "Paul Heyman Talks with a Contractor."
Yep, a callback to our first episode.
Yes, the Concrete Crypt. Everybody check that out. The audio might be a lot different than back then, or than now, but there was some quality, a lot of humor in that episode.
Yeah, and this is the callback almost a year to when we dropped that episode, like a 13-month gap. But just think of what was happening right now on SmackDown. You had Booker T running through graveyards with sand from a voodoo priest. You had a concrete crypt. You had Mordecai doing his stuff. JBL was out here like going crazy, like
Shoving
deportation
down Eddie
American.
Guerrero's mom. Yeah, like doing crazy. Like this was Paul Heyman was definitely writing the SmackDown.
Chavo
Like,
Classic was the cruiserweight champion.
just wild, and that was Jacqueline was for a while too.
Yeah,
Like,
there was a lot of stuff happening here. A lot of hilarious and great things that I remember
yes.
fondly. Rene Dupree
But
had Fifi the dog.
yeah, I'm not sure I'm at that point yet, but he did have his de Rene
Oh my god.
talk show. So
Cena was stabbed shortly after this.
he was stabbed that year. Like 04 to 05 SmackDown was on another level.
It was a wild time. It really
Yeah.
was.
So back to this though, Paul Heyman's conversation with the Dudleys is interrupted by Mordecai randomly slamming Hardcore Holly into a wall. In the the announcers are baffled at why they're fighting. They're like, I don't know why they're fighting. Like, there's no reason to this. But Holly fights back, and they end up in the crowd throwing hands, which was pretty cool. And then they end up backstage again, and Arn Anderson and Michael Hayes are there, and as is Roman's older brother Luther, and they managed to break it up. Not without Mordecai screaming in the face of Hardcore Holly, quote, "I'm going to crucify you."
Yep, he did say that.
I was just
not what you should threaten someone with on national TV, but
no, that's something that get you thrown off the air if all this other stuff was already questionable. But and to think that this was pre-taped, like they could have just they could have just been like, "Hey, don't yell that."
Yeah, he did though. It made for the segment being a lot more memorable than it should have been.
Yes, so awesome segment, just beginning to end, from the contractor talk to Mordecai and Hardcore Holly brawling. But that sets up a match for the Great American Bash with the Mordecai, it's ironic that he wants to help out God when he's actually wrestling God in this match. Hardcore Holly himself.
The big shot himself.
The hardcore God, hardcore Bob Holly, but
Hardcore holy. This
see,
is
that could have been happened if he would have like won over Bob Holly's soul. He could have been hardcore holy.
he would have converted him. My first note about this match is this is the best thing that could have ever happened to wrestling.
Oh gosh, the awesome entrance and everything too. Like I was so excited for this match.
I love
And
Hardcore Holly's song too. Underrated.
it is. It's not quite Billy Gunn's song, but it's very high on the Jim Johnston totem
Or Billy
pole.
Kidman.
Billy Kidman's is one of the most underrated. Like that is a bop right there.
Does not match him at all. His personality completely like MVP or somebody should have had that song.
Yeah, anybody else, Luther Reigns would have gotten over if they would have given him that song. But
Could have gave it to Jimmy Wang Yang.
Jimmy Wang Yang's was a bop too.
I love Jimmy Wang Yang. What a guy.
Yes, great. He runs. I think the last one of the things that I saw on his Wikipedia is he runs a redneck party bus, or he was doing that before the pandemic started.
That's even better.
Yes, so a legend himself. But we're going through all of SmackDown's greatest hits here.
Yes.
Poor Mordecai didn't get much of a reaction at all, but Hardcore Holly got a bit of a pop because he's been around for years, and he previously fought Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar broke Holly's neck, so he had to get revenge, and he did not get the revenge, but he's still a legend, so everybody respects him.
Yes, he threw some nasty chair shots in the Attitude Era too, so he was meant for that era.
He was. He's just a fucking legend because he goes up to Mordecai immediately and goes nose to nose with him too.
Yeah, he's like the guy that you would have all the young guys go against as soon as they got to SmackDown, and they did a great storyline with him and Cody Rhodes when he was his tag partner.
Yeah, it was really good. Like he did a great job of building Cody along and making him what he is today. Like I think he really helped out with his development.
Oh, and speaking of that, I don't know if you remember that segment where he slapped the shit out of Cody.
Yes,
But
I do.
yeah, if anybody needs to watch something and just have their mind blown real quick, I can't believe Cody can still walk right after the slap from Hardcore Holly.
I hope that was just one take too, and he didn't just keep getting slapped in the head.
I think it was. Me and Chase Oliver had talked about this recently. I think Vince was like there for the pre-tape of that, and he looked at Holly and he was like, I need you to slap the shit out of him. And he looked at Vince and he was like, you don't have to tell me twice. And just fucking gave him an ear ringer.
Otherwise, he would have told him, you got 48 hours to learn how to fight, motherfucker.
Yeah. On a plane, he told Rene Dupree, you got 24 hours to learn how to fight, bitch.
Which Rene Dupree deserved from what the story was, but
how
everybody
dare you
go
talk about the French tickler like that.
Everybody check out like Bruce Pritchard's explanation of what happened with the story, or Bob Holly's, because it's something. But
I think he put it in his book.
He did. Yeah, he wrote a whole thing about it. I got to get my hands on that book.
Me too, yeah, for sure. But Mordecai got his hands on Hardcore Holly here after they had attacked backstage. Oh, I found my notes for June 24th. They were in here from the replay, so I went back. But the two brawled and wait, no, I'm wrong. Oh, this was nose to nose here is where we were at. Yes, nose to nose, Holly and Mordecai. And Holly got to hit that nasty chop right there real quick.
Yeah, and these two were throwing like live rounds at each other. It looked stiff.
Yeah, I mean, Hardcore Holly's already, stiff as it is to begin with. And I think Mordecai, after his history with bar fights we see later, he probably likes to lay some shit in.
Yeah, he's a big guy. Like I think it looks good. Like as long as it's not, too excessive. I like stiff wrestling. Like when it comes to these shots, like, but it makes it look a lot more legit.
Yeah. And Hardcore Holly gets, some good shots in. He ties Mordecai up in the ropes by his arms, almost like in a crucifix position. So he had turned the tables on Mordecai after he threatened to crucify him, and kicked and punched Mordecai away there for a minute until he was able to roll out of the ring.
Yes, and it was really like, to me, I thought you definitely don't want to book him as a big guy that doesn't sell things and is like really like plotting
Hmm.
when he is taking bumps and like running away from Hardcore Holly. No offense to the fucking legend himself, but like he's not high on the totem pole in SmackDown. Like, he's a mid carder, and you have Mordecai running from him. It's like, clearly that I'm not saying that he shouldn't do that. Like, I think it's totally fine that he did,
Hmm.
but you also don't want him to wrestle like some monster when he's doing that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was a little confusing how they were having him work here, but when he gets out of the ring, it does set up a good spot, I thought, for the match here because he throws Hardcore Holly's head into the cross to get the advantage again.
Yes, and Michael Cole straight up called it a crucifix too, and I was like, oh, I don't know if you want to be saying that, buddy.
Yeah, I mean they
Like,
did they did almost get thrown off TV for the whole Muhammad Hassan thing. You know, UPN could have thrown him off for this.
yeah. So luckily this was on pay-per-view, so they couldn't get in as
Hmm.
much trouble. But it was probably Vince is probably yelling, "It's a symbol, damn it!" like into Michael Cole's ear after he
Yeah.
said that. But Mordecai gets back with some double axe handles. He gets the comeback, and sadly, there's no reaction by the crowd, which made me very sad because it it's Hardcore Holly and Mordecai, man.
Yeah, I'm a Mordecai Mark. Come on now. Everyone
So
should have been.
yeah, so Mordecai, it sucks because then after a while he just kind of punches and kicks, and it's slow, and he's working that old like that monster style, and it's like, it hurts the quality of the match.
Yeah, and you also get a chin lock rest hold here too, which didn't help further things along.
Yeah, I just I hate the chin lock. I hate it so much. Like, it almost like it's one thing if you're working the neck,
Hmm.
but otherwise it's by time, and it never, unless you're Randy Orton, it never looks good,
Yeah,
or Walter.
I feel like they always revert to the chin lock because I just in my head feel like Vince wants to be able to see the guy's face
Right.
for the camera. Like that's the only thing that makes sense to me with that is you could see both guys' faces in it.
True, and it's easy for them to just whisper in your ear like, okay, this is the next spot.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, but it just kills the match for me every time I see it, unless
Hmm.
you're Orton or Walter. But
Yeah. But the match starts to liven up a bit after the
it
chin lock of
does.
doom because you get the flapjack into the ropes by Hardcore Holly as he starts to get his momentum going, and after the flapjack into the ropes, it looked like they were going for a neck breaker, but they botch it and they sell it like they hit heads, so at least they kind of recovered.
I thought they were doing that on purpose, really, like just as a double down.
Oh, did I don't know. I took it as a botch, but it might have been that way.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Like, which, I mean, it might be a good thing. Like, I wish it was a little bit clearer that they cracked heads then, but
Yeah. I mean,
still,
it makes sense.
right. Either one could have led to a double down, though.
Hmm. And then Holly hits some clotheslines and then a flying clothesline. Um, and Mordecai works his way to a sit out spine buster, which looked pretty nice.
Yes, it was. And around this time, the Michael Cole fucked up here by saying, could Hardcore Holly be the first sinner that Mordecai was talking about? And it's like, well, didn't he clearly say that it was essentially Eddie Guerrero?
Well, maybe Hardcore Holly backstage was lying, cheating, and stealing.
It's possible. We don't know. Like, he could have. See, the booking wasn't matching up with the announcing, which wasn't matching up with the character. See, they Mordecai didn't deserve this, man.
It
He
needed to
deserves
be,
much better.
yeah, needed to be streamlined a little bit.
It did, but after the sit out spinebuster, Holly hit his godlike drop kick for a 2 count.
He does have a great drop kick.
Yes, it just one of the best in wrestling history. Another hot take.
Another is Orton, who doesn't do it like anymore at all. Like he cut that shit off in like 2008.
Yeah, he's like, it's too good of a move. Like I look too good doing it. I gotta be the heel, which
Yeah,
I
that's
get.
what I heard Jim Cornette talk about once. He said heels don't do drop kicks. And I was like, I never thought about it, but yeah, like that's a move that always gets a pop.
True. I mean, I think that they should be able to do it, like especially like an AJ Styles one, as long as they pimp it afterwards, like AJ does, where he's like, "Oh my God, look how cool I am! I just hit that drop kick."
Yeah, like because he said, I think he was talking about in a match where the Midnight were faces for like the first time they fought Barry Windham and Ric Flair, and he said Flair like just called everything, and he was like, Bobby hit a drop kick, and Jim was like, well, goddamn, Bobby hasn't hit a drop kick in 8 years. Like, but Bobby Eaton's great, so you know he worked it out anyways.
Yeah, the legend himself, Bobby Eaton. But after the drop kick, there was an awesome counter to finish this match, where it was like this lift, like he lifted like this unique lift by Holly into the Alabama Slam, which Mordecai dropped down like straight to his feet, and it lifted him up for the crucifix powerbomb and laid him out with it.
I like it. It was great. Yeah, it was a good counter, and the Razor's Edge looked good, and Mordecai looking good because he looks up to God after being victorious another time.
Yes, with getting a huge win according to Michael Cole, and I'm like, that's he's 2-0. You know, you could just say he's 2-0. You don't have to say.
Holy shit! He only had 3 matches.
Yes.
Wow.
On TV, I think he had more half shows, but yeah, we're nearing the end for Mordecai, which I don't like.
Yeah, this next week, July 1st, SmackDown is the last time we see poor Mordecai. One of the shortest runs of a character with such a high ceiling, I feel like.
Yeah, it really did have a high ceiling, and there are reasons as to why this happened so quickly, which we touched on previously, but we'll get into it once this match is over. But we get on July 1st SmackDown, Rey Mysterio versus Mordecai, given away on free TV.
Yeah, the Cruiserweight champion, Rey Mysterio, against Mordecai. This should have been for the Cruiserweight belt.
Mordecai killing all of the Cruiserweights and then making up some sin or whatever about them would have been money.
Yeah, but this Rey was like peak Rey Mysterio. I feel like, well, besides for like 06 and some of that stuff, but I loved like 03, 04, 05 Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, this is when he was like big, like before, like WCW, he was slimmer and quicker, and then he bulked up to get to WWE, but he was still able to move really well at this point. Like, he wasn't just doing drop kicks and normal Hurricane Ranas, he was still doing crazy shit. Not to say that he was ever bad, like he was still exceptional, one of the best in-ring talents of all time, but he was moving quick here. He also had his superior entrance song with the "Who's that jumping out the sky?" Like,
yeah, and the jump through the stage,
just amazing entrance.
Yeah, that was the best. But Mordecai here. And Rey's gear is awful.
Oh, I did a fashion watch for it.
Yeah, this was really bad.
Yeah, he had the zebra print mask with red and yellow on it, and he had a black and white pants that looked like Ed Leslie's version of the Zodiac. So that's what we were working with for the SmackDown.
Yeah, and Mordecai here, he might have known this was his last match because there's just no cloak. He's just out here. He still gets the pyro though when he drops the cross down, but no robe.
Yeah, and they did show his eyes like at the beginning of his entrance video, which I thought was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. He also looked super blonde here. Like, he used to look more like, okay, I have white hair, but here it looked like it was just kind of the Ric Flair white hair type thing.
Hmm. Yeah, he must have not used Just for Men that week.
He used a different one. He's like, quick, I got to do this one last time. So
Yeah. But the match starts, and this is a very good SmackDown match, like very, very good TV match, in my opinion.
I was really blown away by this match because it was just the other two, like he worked at such a different pace, like he was so methodical and everything. And this one was like the crowd was into it. Um, Even though it was taped, like still the crowd was into it, and he was moving like quick. He was working well as a big man against a smaller wrestler.
Hmm. And they set the tone with Mysterio using a lot of his speed. He throws his patented leg kicks as he like gets out of the way of them, and it's like it doesn't slow down really at all. I don't think.
No, because even some cool, like he didn't do a chin lock. He just did like these cool modified submissions to calm. That was the only thing. It never really slowed down the match. It just worked as part of the story.
Hmm. He has another. I believe it was Mordecai that hit this like ankle pick counter, or was it
I
him or
think
no?
I think Ray went for a drop toe hold, and like Mordecai like reversed it by like twisting and stomping on Ray.
Yes, that's what it was. That was great. I love that
Yes.
counter. Very again. If we take anything away from this, it is that Mordecai may have the most logical counters of any wrestler I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was like it really blew me out of like I said, like that sort of thing blew me out of the water because I'm like, why don't more people do this certain thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to get put in a drop toe hold, and a guy that's 100 pounds less than you is trying to, trip your leg, why wouldn't you just stop and stomp him down?
Right,
It's so simple and it works so well.
right. Like even somebody like that, I could see that as a counter to the STF when Cena does it, like before
Hmm.
he does the drop toe hold. Like you just kind of hold on and like reverse it. Like I could see Kurt Angle like dropping to a knee and putting on an ankle lock instead.
Yeah, exactly. So people need to not sleep on these Mordecai matches and look back for these counters.
But he one of the other counters that I loved here was Rey Mysterio went for his like wheelbarrow bulldog thing, and while
Hmm.
he was in the wheelbarrow position, Mordecai picked him up with a full Nelson, walked him over to the post or like the ring or the turnbuckles, and dropped him with a full Nelson facebuster into the top turnbuckle.
Yeah, that was an incredible counter too, because I don't know if anybody's really countered the wheelbarrow bulldog. I feel like he just always hits that. And thinking about it, I'm like, oh, if he worked with like Chris Masters, that would have been amazing. Like he comes out of that, grab the master lock, and then just hold him there.
The master lock, one of my favorite submission finishers from childhood, because
It
you could
was
do the master
so
lock challenge against your friends.
it was so violent, like when he did the full Nelson. Like he got the full Nelson over legit.
Yeah. And then Bobby Lashley started doing it, and it's worked, but it's not quite the level of the master. Like Chris Masters, no offense to him, like I thought he was an underrated talent, but he wasn't really as over as his finisher was.
No, yeah, his finisher was big. And just the way that he threw him back and forth, like, was always a great visual too.
Yeah, it was great. Like I loved the master lock, but um, we get another awesome submission here with Mordecai using the ring post to lock in a bone arrow on Ray.
Yeah, that was the first time I think I've ever seen that.
I feel like I've seen it before, but I just don't remember from where. So like it's something very rare that I'm like, why don't more people do this?
Yeah, and then another thing that's very rare here is this like hangman choke that he does to Ray, where he's holding his face. Like Ray and him are back to back, and he's holding Ray in the air by his neck.
Yeah, like just really really cool stuff. And then it was like it like a modified Cobra Clutch? Was that after that, or was it this what I called it?
This was the that I don't know, because this was where they were standing, and
Yeah, yeah.
he had like his arm hooked in his head.
Oh, okay. I think that's
Yeah,
what I was calling. I
yeah, I think he
remember
had
the
one arm
spot.
hooked.
Okay, so I just wrote modified Cobra Clutch, but I think that undersells how cool this move was.
Yeah, it looks great, and not something you could do with a lot of people because you literally are holding them by their like arm and their neck. But for Ray, it works because he's able to he's at the right height where he can kick the middle of Mordecai's back to counter out of it.
Yeah, that was really cool. It was almost like a gory special for like
Mm-hmm.
reference, but yeah, he kicked out of it and then he came back. He had a beautiful springboard crossbody to follow that up.
Yes. And then after the crossbody, he also gets to hit a tornado DDT. And it looks like Mordecai is going to be over and done with here because Ray hits the 619 kick. But when he goes for the West Coast pop, it doesn't work out the way he wants it to.
No, he gets power bombed into the ropes, which I thought was really cool. It's something that I had not seen before.
Yeah, and then after the power bomb into the ropes, a very nice big boot by Mordecai, who looks like a damn star here. I was ready for the Eddie Guerrero match after this.
They would have put on, like, even if it was just a TV match, like, they could have put something fun on.
Yeah, this there was so much potential with his last match. Like if this was his first match on pay-per-view, I think they would have taken this so seriously that he would have had a good push and a good run.
Right. Instead of just a squash, it's like you don't need him to be a monster. He can just be competitive. Like Bray Wyatt still had competitive matches when he was Bray Wyatt. Like he could wrestle with these smaller guys and look good, and like especially with Ray. And it shows how good Ray is to be able to lead this match and just go off.
Yeah, and this last maneuver here to finish the match is he goes for the crucifix power bomb, and Ray is able to counter into the West Coast pop and hooks the leg, and Rey Mysterio gets the win over the 2-0 Mordecai.
So Mordecai's official record on TV as the character 2-1, and that's it for Mordecai. As we get Michael Cole calling Rey Mysterio, he says that David has beat Goliath, and that's the last we see of Mordecai on TV.
Sadly, it's the last thing we see of him until he returns as Kevin Thorn in ECW.
Yep, vampire named Kevin. But. And I think here, this is where we'll get into it, is his character that was supposedly like going to be so big, like he'd probably have a feud with Eddie Guerrero. He was supposed to face The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Like this, with so much direction, like why was it canceled so early? Like you might ask. And the biggest reason that has been referred to is a bar fight, apparently, that Kevin Fertig was in. And whatever happened there was like threats of a lawsuit happening, and really could have helped, drag the company at a point where they didn't really need that going on.
Yeah. From what I had listened to an interview with him, and some of it's kind of cloudy because I listened to it while I was driving. But from what I remember, is he was saying like, we were in a section by ourselves. There was like 6 or 7 of us, his friends and maybe another wrestler and whatever. And some guy like, people for some reason want to test wrestlers at bars, like to fight for some odd reason. There's some people that want to do it. And, he's a big dude and he's a tough guy. And he pretty much beat this dude down a little bit. And then the whole lawsuit happened. And that's at least the gist of it from what I heard. And, they couldn't have that press at the time.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. Like, especially if it's not somebody like a top guy, you don't want to have that issue going on. And especially if it was like a really bad bar, like if he beat him up fairly bad and it was documented, like I could see why they would have issue with it. And you don't want the public perception of like, hey, because wrestling often gets that unfair public perception too, where it's like they're just a bunch of violent muscleheads and whatever. And some of the stuff can be true, but like in this case, it seems like, okay, he just was standing up for himself. Like it happens, but that can't really happen at all in today's society.
No, and even back then, no social media or anything. And it still, could have been a thing. I'm sure if they would have let this play out, that he may have just got, some kind of community service or some kind of fine. I don't see that he could have really went to jail or anything for it, but just, I guess that was enough for them to be like, all right, we haven't invested too much. let's just send him back to OVW, let it cool down, and then go from there. But obviously, he gets released real quick, but then he comes back, 2 years later.
Yeah, to be Kevin Thorn. And for a while, he lasted with that character. He got to compete at WrestleMania as part of an 8-man tag. He was part of the New Breed on ECW. Shout out to the WWECW on Sci-Fi, Wild Times. Yeah. But he also, apparently, I saw another part of an interview with him that I read, was they were apparently building him for Undertaker again. And
really,
I guess Dusty Rhodes was working a lot with him, and Dusty had told him okay, well, because by then he had a complete look change. He was wearing all black and stuff, and he had a red streak in his hair. His hair was black and red, and Dusty had told him to dye the red out of his hair and just be straight black, and because apparently you got a feud with the Taker coming up or whatever, and eventually. Kevin Thorn had a match with somebody on a SmackDown or ECW, and they had this one really bad botch spot, and he got backstage, and Vince just screamed at him, and he's like, not just for messing that up, but he's like, what are you doing? You're looking like the Undertaker, you're trying to work like the Undertaker, what are you doing? And he was like, clearly there was some sort of miscommunication there, but I guess he said that he wasn't really looked at. I guess that was just a big moment for his career, which sucks for him because clearly it's some sort of miscommunication there.
Yeah, I wonder if Dusty, heard rumblings and he was like, I need to get this kid ready, make him his project or whatever, and
didn't communicate it. Yeah, who knows? Because a lot of things are just simple miscommunication. But that was just an interesting story that I read doing research for this. But Mordecai, I think, is a guy with a lot of talent. We got to watch him wrestle live. I got to see 2 matches. You got to see the one, but he wrestled the legend himself, Swoggle, formerly known as Hornswoggle, in a match that I will be sharing on our Twitter account because AIW posted it on their YouTube. So
awesome.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. One of the most fun matches that I've seen live. Obviously it's not a 5-star classic, but they knew how to work a crowd. It was a lot of fun.
And I found myself next to in the same bathroom as Mordecai at that same show where he was just in full ring gear. I guess there was only one bathroom in the whole fucking place, but me and Mordecai had to pee at the same time, so we were there. And he performed well. He was 40 or so at that point, still moved around well. He's, from what I've heard, a pretty successful realtor in the Indianapolis area now, so it seems like everything's going good for him. It just didn't work out in this Mordecai character in wrestling.
Right, and it's a shame because it did have a lot of potential. It's like an early. I've read some fans say it's like an early version of Bray Wyatt almost, and I could see the parallels, but also I think it was more overtly religious than Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt was more vague, I think. With what he did, and it was just,
he seemed to have his own agenda where it was very clear that Mordecai was pushing a biblical reasoning.
Right. And I just, like I said, I thought at the end of the day, it's an interesting character. There are just a lot of things working against it at the time, especially with it being such a controversial character. But I mean, Undertaker was a Satan worshiper at one point.
He was, yeah. He talked in tongues.
Yeah, he talked in tongues. He tried to embalm someone alive. He hung him on a symbol. So there is room for this sort of risk, I think, but it just, in this scenario, the stars didn't align.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, at least for me, because I loved Mordecai when he debuted. That was maybe one of the first month of my watching of 04 SmackDown where I started actually becoming a fan. I was the little kid in me was damn, this guy's creepy, but he's also it's kind of a cool character to bring out.
For sure. I could see it, and this is definitely completely different, but that sort of feeling, it reminded me of I was a fan of the Boogeyman when I was a kid. Yeah. The Boogeyman wrestler, not the Boogeyman, but No, but like I like that character for some reason, and it's just like it's really creepy, but it's like as a kid you think, oh wow, that's cool. It's cool to like like this thing it's clearly different from everything else that
Yeah,
we're seeing.
something you haven't seen at all.
Right. So
So it was, looking back on it, I think there was a lot of potential left there, especially with the Rey Mysterio match at the end, where it looked like he understood he was able to change up his style, and this is kind of where he may have been hitting a stride in his in-ring work. The mic work was serviceable. It was, I would say, good, but the ring work was moving its way to where his mic work was.
yeah, I agree. And like clearly he was in the developmental system for a while. Like he was picking things up. It's just all about the structure of the matches and stuff. And it's a lot of issues that WWE was having in general, not just with Mordecai at the time, where there was a lot more bodybuilders and an emphasis on a look rather than actual in-ring stuff. So the in-ring product was certainly suffering at that point. But
Yeah.
Mordecai was just almost a casualty of it, where he was forced into this role of chin locks and big plotting stuff when really, like, he could work at that quick pace. He's able to pick it up, and he can have a good match with a good wrestler. Like, he had a lot going for him, I think. And it's just one of those things that just wasn't in the cards.
Yep. And what could be in the cards, though, going to our first giveaway, it could be in the cards for one of our amazing listeners to win a free T-shirt from Stranger Rings here. It's not one of our T-shirts. We need to make those at some point, hopefully. But
yes, that would be. I would wear that.
yes. But this is actually, we talked over what our first one should be. We have a 2XL. That's the only size we have. So sorry if you can't fit that, but a 2XL Rowdy Roddy Piper Hot Rod T-shirt. It's not the classic like white one, but it's black and it says Hot Rod across it. We'll have a picture of it up with the post. But Tom, you're just gonna we're gonna have it on Twitter for this giveaway.
Yes, we're going to do a thing where if you retweet our tweet and give us a follow, like you will be entered for it. We'll pick a random name after a week or so, and then you'll get the shirt, which, hopefully, like, it's really just a thank you to everybody for, if you're already following us, all you have to do is give us a retweet. I'm trying to grow the following a bit, but we just really appreciate what everybody has done for us within the past year. Like, you guys have been awesome.
Yeah, we're trying to grow, but it's also just to show our appreciation. We hope that nobody gets sad if they're not the winner, because we're going to have more of these coming up. Just keep entering, and hopefully the luck is in your hands. But this episode comes on the 27th of January, so I guess we will have, a week to the cutoff point. So on the 3rd is when we will, we'll cut it off the 2nd and choose the 3rd. You will know if you were the winner. We'll talk about it on that episode. So the 3rd is when we will know who has been selected as the winner of the Hot Rod shirt.
Yes, so everybody keep an eye out on our Twitter at Stranger Ring. I almost said Stranger Wings.
If we start a cooking show, we'll be Stranger Wings.
Yes, we'll have to do it someday. But Stranger Rings 1 on Twitter, so hit us with that follow if you haven't already. Just be sure there's try to put a lot of good content on there.
Yeah, we're you can interact with us, ask us whatever you want. We will follow back. We will talk to everybody. We're just two regular dudes that like wrestling and like the funny shit that happens in it too. So the Hot Rod 2X shirt, just check the Twitter, Stranger Rings 1, retweet, follow, and you are entered. And you will know on the February 3rd episode, which is Bischoff on trial.
Yes.
When we will announce the winner of that, which is going to be a fun episode because that's peak fandom for me as a kid.
And I have only seen the final segment of this, so I haven't seen the full trial of Eric Bischoff, where his job is on the line here on as Raw general manager. I believe this was late 2005.
Yes, I think it's December 05, I want to say.
Yes, so it's definitely from what I've heard about it, it looks like it's going to be a fun episode. We'll do all the segments of Bischoff's trial, and you guys will get the verdict at the end.
Yeah, you'll get the verdict, and you'll get to know who is the T-shirt winner, and we will send you a message on Twitter too, so you know you can listen to the episode as always, but you also will notify you if you are the winner. So that is what we got. February schedule we will have out. We got some good things. We have, it's Valentine's month. We are going to have some love in the air with one of the episodes. Our friend Jimmy, I believe, is returning for that one since he is the Stranger Rings wedding expert.
We're going to get him in we're going to do all of the wedding episodes, and Jimmy's going to be on all of them.
He's going to be able to put in his LinkedIn that he is a wedding aficionado.
Love it.
Yeah, we got some good stuff, and potentially, it's not potentially. We'll also have a musical episode where we review another album that has to do with wrestling in February, which is going to be exciting because we did the wrestling album last year. So you'll have to see what album we talk about in February.
Yes, and hopefully nothing happens in the middle of it, like Goldberg beating the Fiend, that makes me upset the rest of the episode.
I forgot that's what happened that day. Yeah, that did happen. Yeah, hopefully not. But yeah, so February is going to be a fun month. We're going to have Jimmy back on. Hopefully I sent him all the stuff to watch, and he seemed very excited. So it's going to be great. But yes, just enter for that giveaway. I would love to ship something to somebody for free so they can have a free straight up WWE t-shirt. A legit, this ain't one where I just wrote Hot Rod on a white t-shirt. It's legit. We'll have a picture of it with it. But until then, you can leave us a 5-star review if you can. We very much appreciate it. That is a very big help to us. And follow us on Twitter, Stranger Rings 1. Instagram is Stranger Rings Pod. Anything else before we leave for right now?
Just shout out to all of the other great podcasts to follow. The Sweet Chinwag podcast, the New Blood Rising podcast, the Raw Attitude podcast, and the Monday Night Chores podcast. All great listens. Everybody should check those out.
Yes, for sure. Great friends of the show. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But I guess the only fitting way to end this episode is to say, hear us. Well, you don't have to fear us. It's all right. But
yeah,
yeah, we don't fear us. But yeah, so we'll be back next week. Thank you guys for listening.